This episode is brought to you by Alaska's Fishhound Expeditions. Fishhound Expeditions is a guide-owned, guide-operated company offering Alaska fly fishing trips on some of Alaska's best rivers. Their guides have fished and guided all over the world, but Alaska is where they will always come back to. No matter the length of your trip, from 1 day to 10 days, their experienced, knowledgeable, and passionate guides will guide you to Alaska's fishing trip of a lifetime. Check them out at fishhoundexpeditions.com.
Over the years, there have been hundreds of reports throughout the Pacific Northwest of a hairy, two-legged animal that walks upright. For actual evidence, there's little to go by, except for the tracks.
My name is Ron Morehead. I live in Sequoia, Washington. I've been researching Bigfoot for 50 years this year, actually, and after I ran into a family of them in California, Sierra Nevada mountains.
Coming from the east. Seems to be getting closer.
When news wires carried the story that a group of workers had been frightened by a Bigfoot, we decided to find them and hear their stories at first hand.
It was about dark, and there was a big shadowy figure standing there, and when our foreman come out of the tent and seen it with me and this guy, he panicked and shot the gun.
We could see a large creature, large humanoid type figure, lumbering across that opening there. See, the next morning when they went up to look for footprints, I stayed here and kind of gauged the size of them compared to what we saw the night before, and I'd say it was another 2 foot taller than, say, Leonard here, and he's a good 6'2", 6'1", 5'10"? Yeah, so you figure 7-8 foot type creature.
We made our own survey of the area, looking for Bigfoot tracks. And yet, in an area where there were no human-sized footprints, we found this. So from the distance of that camp, the men say they heard several screams, then they saw a figure standing about where I am. They fired a shot, the figure turned and ran down this trail, standing on 2 legs, they say, and disappeared from view. That's the story. As Jack Palance says, believe it or not.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Guy Jeans. And today's podcast, if you guys can guess it, is about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and all those stories that you hear about. You know, you never hear about Bigfoot sightings in the Southern Sierra. You hardly hear about any. And I did some research, and I was really surprised at all the different sightings and encounters and audio clips that I could find on the Southern Sierra. And it's pretty impressive. I found 2 pretty legit reports from back in the 70s in Monache Meadows. There's a report of a sighting in and around Kernville, California. There's 2 sightings near Lake Isabella, where the South Fork of the Kern comes into Lake Isabella. There's 2 encounters at Kennedy Meadows, which is over by the South Fork of the Kern River as well. There's 1 in the Golden Trout Wilderness up in the high country. There's another one where a deer hunter found some tracks. There's another one in the Golden Trout Wilderness where a family of 4 ran into one. There's been sightings in the Tule River Indian Reservation, which is on the other side towards Porterville, but still in the Southern Sierra. There's been one really good one, a really good audio file, which I'm going to play for you guys in Sequoia National Park. One near Mineral King in Sequoia National Park. Believe it or not, also there's one sighting over by Tehachapi, which is also in the Southern Sierra. 2 people saw one in their horse pasture in the rural areas of Tehachapi as well. And then a Forest Service crew also saw one in and around Acton, California. And that's about as far south as in the Southern Sierra that I could find in that zone, basically in the southern area there. So pretty cool. You guys just heard is kind of kind of cool. These are stories from the Sierra Mountain Range, the Southern Sierras to be specific. The audio file you guys heard of the Bigfoot screaming there is actually of some hikers in Sequoia National Park. They're near Sequoia National Park at their camp, and they recorded that with their phone. Story that you heard of those guys talking about their encounter was actually in Monache Meadows back in the 70s. There was 8 Forest Service workers working back in Monache Meadows at the north end of the South Sierra Wilderness there, and they were building a bridge to put across the South Fork of the Kern River for the Pacific Crest Trail. And those of you that have hiked the Pacific Crest Trail know which bridge I'm talking about, or some of the folks that have fished in that area know that area well. And I'm going to play some more of that encounter here a little bit later. But I want you guys to make sure to listen to the very end, because I'm going to talk about a encounter that I had about 15 years ago near the South Fork of the Kern River as well. A lot of people think that Bigfoot isn't real. They think it's just a hoax or whatever it is. There's no good pictures. There's no good audio files, or what I encountered was, a guy was telling me that, have you ever seen those people that have seen Bigfoot? They're out of their mind. I'm going to talk about that later on in the podcast as well. But, there's a lot of footage out there. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Some of it's fake. Some of it's could be fake, could be real. Then some of it looks pretty darn real. The story that I'm going to play for you guys now is of Ron Morehead, who's been studying and chasing Bigfoot for over 50 years. He had an encounter in the Sierra Mountains at one of his deer camps. And he used to go up there with a bunch of his friends back in the 1970s, and he's been going back ever since. And really hard to get to camp that they built. And they would actually make a shelter because at nighttime, these creatures would come around the camp, and he thought they were trying to scare them out of there. But they actually did make some really good audio recordings of them because they were inside their structure to stay safe. And they did this year after year. And they actually had their weapons with them. And if it was anybody trying to play a hoax on them, it would be kind of bad for the people that were doing the hoax, because these guys are armed. But it's really interesting. They are calling back to them. So some of the voices that you're hearing going back at the calls are the hunters trying to communicate with them. They actually had a guy who was a professor, linguist, check out some of these sounds as well. They're going to talk about that as well. So without further ado, here is Ron Morehead.
What year did the Sierra camp start?
The camp's been here since the 50s. I didn't start coming up until 1971.
And do you know what brought him to this spot?
It's just one of those spots that Warren used to say, this is as close to heaven as he thinks he'll ever get. It's so remote. The deer are plentiful. There's a lot of bear up here. It's pristine. There's a lot of granite, fresh water coming right out of the ground. This is where the springs start, and it goes out to the rivers, and it's just a gorgeous place to be. We was all very sober camp, a very strict camp. No unload before you came into camp. No alcohol was here. It was really a quite disciplined camp. All the guys were professional people, so we kept what was going on up here, whatever it was, we don't know, but kind of to ourselves for a long time. Yeah.
And what was the average success rate for you guys coming up here?
Oh, the deer, it was 100%. We never didn't get a deer. It's that kind of a place. We really didn't realize what we were dealing with. We still don't know what we're dealing with, but it was something very unusual. Strange things happen, and most of the stuff happened in the evening time, just at dusk, nighttime, like now. The first time I ever heard anything was later in '71. I came back up with the guys, and we was here by the stove. There was a stove here then. And as soon as it starts getting dark, we'd go in. Sometimes you might hear a grunt or a whoop or a big blowing sound or something like that, and that's when you know you want to get inside the shelter because you still don't know what you're dealing with. Whatever it is big, very, very big. You all go inside, close the shelter door, and that's a log that we put between these trees, and then we'd strap it inside a cable, and then they would start making their sounds. And that was in '71 when I first started hearing them, and we started recording them.
Right here, you guys, the hunters, they're trying to call back to the creatures, so that's why you're hearing those sounds that sound kind of like human-like.
There's two of them across the creek at the big rocks.
Talking about maybe having to shoot our way out. You're just sitting there, all of you are kind of petrified. You're just waiting for the walls to break open, something reach in there and grab you and hold you up, and waiting for the light to break in the cracks of the walls, and it never happened. That's the strange part, because you hear it over there, but you don't see it over there. As time went on, '72, same thing. You know, whatever it was, we thought might be trying to scare us out. Maybe this is their territory, but we don't know. We can only guess at why they were doing what they were doing, and that they were observing us, that's for sure.
Well, we do know that their vocal range is much greater than human beings. Their frequencies go way above and way below the abilities of human. I was trained in all of the deceptive practices in voice communications. Besides the fact that you have the creatures stepping on each other in their conversational turns, you have the humans, like Ron, stepping on the creatures back and forth, overlapping their voices on the tapes. That can't be faked. Not in 1974. Plus, it would be extremely dangerous to come up here at night into a camp full of well-armed hunters. They don't go to bed at night without their guns at their sides. Yeah, it's ridiculous to think of it. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it just to coax a bunch of hunters up here.
So from a 100% factual standpoint, we really don't know what's making this language sounds.
That's right. We don't know. One time I heard a big, sound like a huge tuning fork above us, and you couldn't find the source of it. It was just a big sound like that. Sometimes you hear a sound out here, and one time we thought our camp was being torn apart by something. We thought the barrels we'd packed in and was being torn up and tossed around, and you look out here when all the commotion and the sound stopped, and nothing changed. Now, how do you explain that? You know, one time we was in there, I thought I heard a car door slam out here. Now, come on, we're 8 miles in the wilderness. There's no...
So aside from the sounds, You also saw some things in the sky and the air?
Yeah, lights, yeah, orbs. Other guys that report orbs when I wasn't here. Me and my friend Bill saw one night was a big blue ball coming down from up here, slowly moving, definitely controlled. It had some type of intelligence about it. And if you were just looking up there, you would think it was the moon, but it was blue. It was moving down. We lost it behind the trees and went over there. So I don't know what to think of that. You don't know what to think about any of this stuff, you know. We were in a tent. It just almost, it wasn't this dark, but this thing, what it was, just kind of starts moving across over here behind us. Elongated light, about probably 3 foot long, probably about that big around, and just a rod of light. I tell people when I talk about it, it's like a Star Wars saber. White, glowing, but not bright glowing, just glowing. And it just moved slowly through the trees, definitely controlled, and dissipated over here.
Is it embarrassing to talk about?
No, I don't care. I'm old enough now, nothing bothers me.
What makes you keep coming back?
The mystery that's still here. There's still a mystery that needs to be solved or understood. And I'm here now because you're here. I've been asked multiple times to be brought up here by different people, and I've turned them down basically because I don't want the area. It's such a pristine area still. I don't want it exposed to a bunch of researchers come up here just inundating the area. And I've also told the hunters to still come up and their offsprings would still hunt the area, you know, that I'll kind of keep it very private as much as possible. The shelter, although it's been dismantled now years ago, it's still a place to come to. Nothing surprises me, nothing up here. Why this is such a strange place, I have no idea, but it is a very interesting area.
We spent 7 days with Ron and Scott at the Sierra camp. And although we didn't experience anything paranormal, this area holds many secrets. That we know for sure.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys about my experience, my encounter. It was a fall day in October, and I was driving home from a guide trip in the Domeland Wilderness. So I was driving on the 178, heading back towards Kernville, and then I turned onto Sierra Way, and it was kind of about dusk time. And so the lighting was still good, but it was definitely, the sun had gone behind the mountain. And I was driving towards the South Fork of the Kern. And the South Fork of the Kern, right in that section, is kind of the area where it starts to dump into Lake Isabella. And there's lots of trees there. It's a very wild place, and not a lot of people go there. It's a very forested area. It's a protected area. It's bird sanctuary. And I crossed the South Fork of the Kern Bridge, and I'm driving probably about a half mile from the bridge, and I come around the corner, and this creature comes up out of it's like a little swamp area, comes up out of the swamp area, runs across the road and goes into this cave. And the creature, of course, was very hairy, and I could see the air, the wind blowing off its arms. And before it went into the cave, I stopped in front of the cave and kind of looked in the cave real slowly in my truck, and got kind of freaked out, and kind of then pressed on the gas and kind of took off. Well, this happened, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell a soul about it, because you hear about those people that say they've seen, a creature, a Bigfoot, or anything like that. They think that they're crazy, Well, this thing was actually like it wasn't a very tall, but it was definitely standing on 2 feet. It looked kind of apish. It had a lot of hair, more than I thought I could expect to see on a Bigfoot, but it was super hairy, long hair, and it was standing up on 2 legs, and it ran across the highway into this cave. So I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't tell anybody for those reasons. And so one day I'm in my fly shop and I'm working, and this local guy comes in, and we're talking about fishing and going up into the Golden Trout Wilderness, and we're talking about different areas and stuff. And I said, hey, have you ever fished over in the South Fork of the Kern area there, where the river comes into the lake? And he's all, no. He's all, but you know what, man? He's all, my cousin likes to kayak that area a lot, and about 2 months ago, he said he saw like a Bigfoot. And I'm like, no way. And hair stood up on my arms and my neck, and I go, I think I saw something too. And he's all, yeah. He's all, he puts in at the Onyx Bridge there, and then he floats down to the South Fork of the Kern Bridge, and it's real mellow. And he came around the corner, and there was a Bigfoot standing on the bank. And I'm like, no way. And he's all, yeah. He's all, you'd be surprised at how many people have seen a Bigfoot in that area. And I couldn't believe it. So anyways, I kind of let people know. And I had a fishing forum at the time, and the fishing forum was really popular. It was called the Kern River Fly Fishing Report Fishing Forum, and there's thousands of people on that thing every day. It was kind of crazy. Anyways, I put on a post on there on the forum, Bigfoot sighting, and people are like telling me, don't do that, people are going to think you're crazy, dude. And I just, at the time I was like, whatever, Anyway, word got out that I had seen something, and it got across the country, and it got to a lot of Bigfoot searchers and researchers and that sort of thing, and they were calling me and talking to me about it. And then one day, the guy that has the Bigfoot Times magazine showed up at the shop, and he started talking to me about the sighting and that sort of thing, and they ended up taking him over there where I saw it. He's all, I haven't been here since the 70s, man. He's all, there was a sighting in Monache Meadows, and I came out for that. And there was a bunch of Forest Service people that were working on the bridge for the Pacific Crest Trail, and they saw something, man. So I went out and investigated it, and he's all, you're really lucky, man. He's all, I've never seen one, and I just love investigating these things, and you're one in a zillion people that have seen something, And I started to think about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But I did see something. I did see some kind of creature, and what you want to call it, a Bigfoot or whatever, but it was definitely not something that I've seen in the wilderness ever. And I spend a lot of time in wilderness areas, the Domeland Wilderness, Rock House Basin, the South Sierra Wilderness, the Golden Trout Wilderness. I'm in those wildernesses quite a bit. Spend a lot of my time guiding people in those areas and fishing in those areas more than most people. And, it's about time that something like that came across my path or something, Anyways, so I started talking to people, different people, locals and stuff like that. And one time I asked this local in Kernville, I said, you've spent a lot of time in the wilderness. This guy has spent as much or more time in the wilderness than I have over the years. He's a lot older than I am, and he's been all over the South Sierra Wilderness, hiking, backpacking, all these kinds of things. And I asked him one time, I said, have you ever seen a mountain lion? And he's all, guy, I saw a mountain lion. I think I saw a mountain lion one time off at some meadow way back in there, but I wasn't sure if it was or not. And I said to him, you mean to tell me out of all these years that you've been in the wilderness, you've only seen or maybe seen a mountain lion? He's all, yeah. He's, no, it's crazy, man. He's all, I've never really seen one, man. And, me personally, I've seen 11 mountain lions in the amount of time that I've been in the wilderness. Firsthand, close encounters, that sort of thing. I've been right there where they're at. So it was really interesting to hear that from a guy who's spent more time in the wilderness than I have and been all over the wilderness and never seen a mountain lion. It's pretty interesting. So anyway, I asked him, out of all the years you've been in the wilderness, and have you ever seen anything crazy, like, weird or, anything like that, like Bigfoot? He's all, oh, hell no. Have you ever seen those people that have seen Bigfoot? They're out of their mind. So I just left it at that. I didn't tell him my Bigfooting story. Anyways, that's my little encounter. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. This is fun stuff. I love hearing about it. If you guys have any stories that you've seen Bigfoot, make sure to comment on that in the comments. If you think I'm full of crap, write that in the comments, whatever. I don't care. Just it's a lot of fun just to hear your guys' comments and hear what you guys have to say. So once again, you guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. This podcast is growing and it's awesome. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So take care, you guys.